So I'm gonna have to be a bit quiet because my siblings are already asleep. But here's a cool feature I found, or basically I already knew about this feature for quite some time, but I said that I was gonna record a video today, and it's a pretty simple feature, so we're just gonna cover that. Alright, so the feature for today's video are symlinks, or basically not symlinks, but junctions specifically. There's a small difference, but you don't really need to worry about that. Um, so basically what we're gonna do is if we open up this cmd.exe in a arbitrary location, which I just copied over for testing and showcasing purposes. Like you can see, I copied it to C users public and the folder I created called test right here. If we open up this process, or this can be any other file as well, in a debugger, or if a file is opened up in any other process, the process opens up a handle to that process in this case, or to that file. So let's make this open up a handle to it, right? So it's just doing debugger things right here. And this is now, like this right here has a handle to this process. And because of that, we cannot delete this file, right? Because it's opened up in another process. You might have run into this issue before. What you can do to now delete this file is essentially close this process right here. But there are some edge cases on like privilege escalation on Windows where you need the process to have this file or this other process open, and then you have to exchange it. For example, bait and switch vulnerabilities are, a pretty good showcase for that. And I did give a talk in my Discord community about a specific bait and switch vulnerability that I found. So, if you are interested in that, go join. Link is in the description, like always. So basically, the way bait and switch vulnerabilities work is that, for example, when you have a signed DLL that gets loaded, you have the process that checks the signature of that DLL, and then after that, it loads the DLL. And if you get the process to hang at that exact moment between checking the signature and then loading it, like right in between that, if instruction here is checking the signature and down here is loading the DLL, if you get it to hang right in between, if you get it to stop, then you could potentially exchange the DLL because it already checked the signature for your own DLL, and your DLL gets loaded, right? Because only the load instruction is left. There's a way you can do that. We'll cover that in another video. So, but because that DLL is already opened in that process for checking the signature, like this file right here is opened in this process for doing debugger things, you cannot delete or modify this file, right? Because it's opened up in that process. That is where junctions come in. So let me just close this right here so it's not hung here anymore. What you can do is, if we have write permissions over this, but obviously we cannot, like I said, we cannot exchange it for our own file because, it's already opened. What we can do is remove a directory up and rename this folder to test1. And then we open up a command prompt here. And we will have an exploit folder as well. This is where our original stuff, or like the stuff that we need, is going to get placed into. So we could just copy cmd.exe. Oh wait, we have to actually do this. Windows system 32 cmd.exe into exploit. see right here. And now what we can do is, because we see exploit right here and we see test1 right here, in the original process, if it's an absolute path that is being specified, or it doesn't even have to be an absolute path, but we can basically trick it into going into our exploit folder by creating a junction. What junctions are basically, you can imagine them like portals. We can create a portal right here that just points to our exploit folder, and the portal is going to be called test. It's going to point to our exploit folder, but it's going to look like it's accessing the test folder. So that when the DLL gets loaded, or this process gets interacted with, we can delete the portal, because the process itself is locked, because it's only a handle to the process, not to the folder. So we can delete the portal and then rename this back, and now the process has a handle open to this thing, like this file inside of exploit, but not in the original folder, which is test, which we'll rename back. So when it tries to access the DLL at the first location, it will find it within the portal, within our bait directory, and then we'll switch up that directory for the original one, and then it's gonna, if it then uses absolute paths again, or it finds it and reads it from disk again, it's gonna use that one instead. I hope that made sense. So let's showcase how that works. So in C users public, right here, we're going to dilute it to go to exploit. So the command is make link /j for junction, and then you just go test, which is the name that you're gonna want to name it. Then you're gonna point it to exploit. Boom. You can see right here the portal test, which points to exploit. If you double click this, it's gonna say test even in the Explorer right here, but we're really in exploit. So that's how it works. Now, let's close this right here, because otherwise we'll get confused. Let's pretend we're the program. We're going into test, right? And open up cmd.exe. Then let me just attach this so we can't delete it. Right here. Here you can see it's still exploit. If you can read that, the thing is pretty small. So right here we have the locked program right here, and we cannot delete it, right? And now we got the program to hang, and now we're ready to replace it, but we can't replace it. But what we can do is delete test right here, delete the portal, boom, and now rename this folder back, and now the original test cmd.exe is not the one that we selected here, because this one is the exploit cmd.exe, and now this is test.exe, test cmd.exe, and we can just do whatever we want with it. We can delete it if you want, because it's not open in there, right? We can just delete it, boom. But this right here still has the handle to that process. Pretty useful in certain edge cases where you have to try to modify a file that you cannot modify because there's a handle already open to that file. Super useful. I have found a bunch of vulnerabilities with it regarding privilege escalation mainly. Yeah, super niche as well. I don't even really know how it works in depth, but super useful tool. That's already it, because I gotta go to bed. It's 11 p.m. and I said that I would record, edit, and upload this video today. So yeah, see you.